Good afternoon. It's now 1 p.m., December 7th of 2023, and I call this Platting Board meeting to order. Do we have a roll call, please?
Ron Johnson,
Present.
Eric Cohn,
Present.
Dan Bush,
Present.
Michelle Traxler, present. Sander Krieger is not here. Alan Leonard,
Present.
we have a quorum.
Mr. Bush, would you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Do any members of the board have any modifications that need to be made to the agenda today? With no modifications or objections, the agenda passes unanimously. Has anyone on the board seen anything that needs to be modified for the minutes of November 16th of 2023? No objections to the minutes as presented for November 16th of 2023. They pass unanimously. At this point, I would like to invite members of the public, if they'd like to speak to the board about something that is not a case that we're hearing today, just a general platting thing, you can come forward and talk to us about what you have to say. No one coming forward? Anyone online? There's no one online and no one coming forward in the room. So we'll move on to our next order of business, which is our public hearing. A, Old Timber. The request is to create 3 lots from parcels 2 and 3, waiver resolution serial number 93-31 PWM, and parcel 2, waiver resolution serial number 2001-237 PWM, to be known as Old Timber, containing 24.99 acres plus or minus. The petitioner is dedicating a 30-foot by 30-foot section as right-of-way to serve as legal access onto East Relaxing Road. The property is located south of East Smith Road Extension, east of North Smith Road, and north of East Maud Road, within the southeast quarter section 1, Township 17 North, Range 2, East Seward Meridian, Alaska, in the Butte Community Council, and in the Assembly District number 1. To the board, do you or any member of your immediate family, have a substantial financial interest in any property affected by this decision, or will you recognize a foreseeable profit as a result of this decision? No one coming forward. Have you received or otherwise engaged in ex parte contact with the applicant, other parties interested in the application, or members of the public concerning the application or issues presented in the application, either before the application or during any period of time the matter is submitted for decision outside of the public process provided by the borough? Hearing and seeing none, the board may continue as seated. Public notices, please.
On November 14th, 76 public notices were mailed.
Thank you. Staff report, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The proposed Old Timber subdivision will be creating 3 lots and dedicating a 30-foot by 30-foot section as right-of-way on the northwest corner of the property. Legal and physical access will exist for all lots once the 30-foot by 30-foot section is dedicated. A soils report was submitted pursuant to code and as seen at Exhibit B. All 3 lots will have the minimum required 10,000 square feet of usable building area and an additional 10,000 square feet of contiguous usable septic area. At the time the staff report was written, there were no comments received from the public in response to the notice of public hearing. After the report was written, there was 1 non-objection comment received, and that is in your handout. There were no objections from any federal or state agencies, borough departments, or utilities. There was 1 comment received from the public with no objections. Legal and physical will exist for all lots once that dedication occurs. Frontage will exist for all lots. The soils report was submitted, noting that all lots have the minimum required area, and staff recommends approval with 7 findings of fact and 6 recommendations of conditions of approval.
Thank you, Mr. Goddard. Do we have questions for staff from the members of the board? We don't have any questions. I would like to invite the petitioner or the petitioner's representative to come up and give a brief overview of the case if they'd like to. Okay, thank you. At that point, I would like to invite members of the public to come up and speak to this case. If you're in the room, just come right up, announce your name, and give us an overview of what you have to say. If you're online, please press *3, and that will raise your hand and we can see you. Is there anyone online? With no one online and no one coming forward from the room, I'm going to close the public portion of this meeting and re-invite the petitioner or the petitioner's representative to come up for a further overview if they would like to give it, and possible questions from staff if we should have any. Do we have any questions for the petitioner from the board? Then I would invite a motion from the board. Mr. Bush.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move to approve the preliminary plat of Old Timber Section 01, Township 17 North, Range 02 East, Seward Meridian, Alaska, contingent on staff recommendations.
I will second that.
7 findings of fact and 6 recommendations of approval. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bush. Do you still second, Mr. Cohn?
Yes, I do. Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen. Discussion from the board about the motion presented before us. Is there any objection from any members of the board to unanimously passing the petitioner's request? With no objection, it passes unanimously. And we'll move on to our next order of business, which is plotting staff and officer comments.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As you can see, we have one case for the next hearing on December 21st. We will be here at our regular location, and we won't have anything else. We should have our new board member on at that time. And other than that, I don't have anything else. Thank you for coming on. Anybody? Carol, do you have any? Staff? Nothing from Fund. Yep, we're good.
Thank you, Master Wagner. Any comments from any members of the board?
I would actually like to make a comment.
Yeah, go ahead.
As we're finishing this year and going into the next, I would ask the staff maybe if we can have like a 3-hour session to where we can discuss certain things that routinely come up that may or may not impact what we're deciding, but just in general for consistency's sake, maybe resetting of we have new board members coming on board, that sort of thing. We talked about it last year, but we didn't really do anything.
That sounds pretty good. I could also support such a thing. Perhaps we have our election coming up, and perhaps we could include in that. I don't know necessarily a time frame necessary, but perhaps the staff can put together maybe hey, this is something that we could advise or might be useful for any board member that we regularly encounter. Mr. Wagner.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Fred Wagner, planning officer. We can have Mr. Ashenbrenner has a couple of presentations he can give to the board, and it's probably a good time for one. We haven't had one in quite a while, and a lot of new board members might be able, and then that also you'll be able to ask him some questions, and staff will be present, so we can make that just part of one of our meetings. We will consult with John, Mr. Ashenbrenner, and see what works for him, and we'll put something on our agenda. Thank you for asking.
Thank you for being so accommodating. Mr. Johnson, you had your.
Mr. Chairman, I was just going to give you advance notice. I will miss the first meeting in January.
You will be missed. Mr. Wagner.
There is one more thing I should have brought up during my period, and it should have been on our list. I believe we will be electing new officers. Is it the first meeting of the year or the last meeting of the year?
It should be at the first meeting of the year.
Okay, thank you. I think we know who our new chair.
Sounds good to me. look forward to it. And it's now 1:10. Unless we have any further comments members would like to make today, I close this meeting.